Hello viewers, here in front of you H.M. Kalita, Senior Faculty Member of Kalita Residential IS Coaching Academy, Guwahati. Today I am going to discuss how Assamese language formed. How Assamese language formed. What is the origin of Assamese language? What are the contribution of Tibeto-Burmese group of Mongoloid? Why the Assamese language is different from the Indo-Aryan languages of Central India? All I will try to discuss in this topic. Let us start the topic. As you know, Assam, as mentioned in Yogini Tantra to Kaitbo Mimasa, or Assam as described in Allahabad rock inscription of Samudra Gupta, which dated back to 3rd or 5th century, or the ancient remains of Bamuni Pahar. The ancient remains of Bamuni Pahar, the stone images and stone works scattered all over the state indicates that a main art form of ancient India had certainly come to this land of Pragjyotiswara and its adjoining areas. Even King Tibeto-Burman, as is evident from what Huan Sang has described, written about the extent of the kingdom of Kamrupa, its culture and its languages. As you know, Aryans have settled in this land from ancient times, and that Aryan language and culture constituted the mainstream of Assamese culture and language. Those speaking the Indo-Aryan languages are a part of wider Aryan circle, though ethnically they belong to Mongoloid. Indian culture. You know that Indian culture and civilization was a synthesis of the Aryan and non-Aryan civilization and culture. A stream of that culture was brought to Assam by Aryan-speaking Alpine forces in the 4th century BC. The seeds of Assamese language and culture were lying dormant in that stream which Alpine warriors brought with them. On the other hand, many of the social groups came to Assam many centuries after the Alpine forces had come. The small Alpine groups mixed with other social groups in Assam and broadened and gave new dimensions to that social cultural life of the state. What I want to say that Alpine forces mixed with the other social group, and that gave birth to a new society in the state. Our social and cultural life has developed stage by stage. Our social and cultural life has developed stage by stage through the process of repeated synthesis of different races, different people of different time. We have noted that the kingdom of Kamrupa, the boundary of ancient Assam, were expanded or reduced in different times in different political time, and this because of fall and rise of those kingdoms. In the 13th century, before the coming of Sukapha, the kingdom of Kumar Bhaskar was reduced. When Sukapha established his capital at Saraidev in 1253, the boundaries of the Brahmaputra valley was divided into four kingdoms. When Sukapha established his capital at Saraidev in 1253 AD, the Brahmaputra valley was divided into four kingdoms: the kingdom of Sutia, the kingdom of Kesaris, the kingdom of Bhuyans, and the kingdom of Kamatapur at the west. But the languages that was prevalent in all those four kingdoms was the same throughout. Even Huan Sang came in touch with the language, and he has said that the language spoken in this land was slightly different from the languages of central India. That means while Huan Sang came to Kamrupa, he came in contact with the language of those kingdoms. And when he has written, he has described that this language was slightly different from the language of central India. His comment, Huan Sang's comment, is indicative of the fact that the branches of Indo-European languages incorporated within itself thus got the influences from Tibeto-Burmese group of languages, and therefore this language was naturally different from the language of Central India. Why our language is different from the Central India? Because the language that time prevailed in this area have got the influences of different Tibeto-Burmese group. What I want to say that the Tibeto-Burmese group has added some of the words with the Indo-European languages and gave birth to a new language which is naturally different from the languages of Central India. But the language spoken in all those kingdoms was the same, which proves that in different historical periods, though different groups of people came to this Brahmaputra valley, they came within the same linguistic and cultural orbit. Different groups, different ethnic people came to this land at different times, but all of them came under the same linguistic and cultural orbit. Under different kingdoms, under those four kingdoms, they all came under the same linguistic and cultural orbit. The Negritos, the Austroasiatic, the Dravidian, the Alpine, the Aryan, the Mongoloid all emigrated to this land at different times. And out of their mutual interfusion, they are evolved the Assamese language, the Assamese culture. That means Assamese language, Assamese culture evolved under the interfusion of different ethnic groups at different times. As you know, those social groups, those ethnic groups must have come after the Aztec. The main group, that is the Mongoloid features, are commonly evident in the population of Assam and the northeast. And that points to the large influx of Mongoloid into this area. It is a fact that different hordes of Mongoloid ethnic groups had entered the area of Brahmputra Valley at different times from the north, northeast, and the south. The different clans of these Mongoloid people, though they are from the same origin, their languages are distinct from one another. That means those Mongoloid groups whose origin is same, but all the different subclans have their own languages that is different from one another. Their languages with limited vocabulary is so-called the dialects. Those dialects, those languages are different from the Indo-Aryan language. The Sino-Tibetan group of languages can be divided into two branches, Siam Chinese and Tibeto-Burmese group. Most of the tribal languages of Brahmputra Valley originated from the second group, that is Tibeto-Burmese group of languages. But those clans, those Tibeto-Burmese group have their languages different from one another. One of the common distinguishing feature of these languages is that in many cases, slightest phonetic change alters the meaning of the whole word. Unless one knows those phonetic grammars of each language, one cannot master the language. Even the Assamese words have also accepted those phonetic pattern of some of those words. That means some of the phonetic words were imported to the Assamese language. One of the distinguishing features of Indo-Aryan group of languages is that for a different meaning, a separate word is used. Moreover, Sanskrit language is more resourceful and expressive than any other language. By addition or by deletion or by synthesis, one can create totally new word in Sanskrit. This is the peculiar power of Sanskrit language. This could have been the main reason for the spread of Assamese ancient language in this state rather than the Tibeto-Burmese group of languages. One of the distinguishing drawback of those Tibeto-Burmese languages is that it lacks script. When it lacks script, it became difficult for those phonetic grammar to express. You know that different Tibeto-Burmese group of Mongoloid, different Tibeto-Burmese group of Mongoloid groups came to this land of Assam at different times, and gradually they lost control with their own mother tongue, own languages, because they don't use it and come to adopt the Assamese language as their mother tongue. When those Indo-Mongoloid groups came to this land, they lost control of their mother tongue because they stopped using it and adopt the Assamese language as their own mother tongue. But they brought with them some of the words, some of the phonetic words, some of the expression, and those they affixed with these Assamese languages. What I want to say that with the elements of Tibeto-Burmese group, with the elements of Tibeto-Burmese group, the language so developed with certain variation from the other Indo-Aryan languages of Central India to what became the Assamese languages. That means Assamese language originated from those Indo-Aryan languages with certain variation but with some addition of elements from the Tibeto-Burmese group. It became clear that the tributaries coming out of the Indo-Aryan languages mainstream got enriched with the waters of different streams and tributaries of the languages of different origins such as the Tibeto-Burmese. In course of time, it became the mother tongue of all people gathered in the Brahmto Valley, such as Aryans, Dravidian or people of Mongoloid. So, it would be grossly incorrect to say that Assamese language was brought to Assam by the so-called Aryan families. On the contrary, it is a language which the people of the area had evolved themselves for their particular use. That means Tibeto-Burmese group of people gave some emphasis, some words to the Indo-Aryan group and gave birth to the Assamese language. Dr. Suniti Kumar Chattopadhyay has shown that Sanskrit language was originated from the synthesis of Aryan language with those of the Aztec and Dravidian language. That means Sanskrit language originated from the synthesis of Aryan languages with those of the Aztec and Dravidian language. But the those Tibeto-Burmese group who use this Assamese language, they are confined to the northeast only. You just note this point. The Sino-Tibetan group of languages were confined to the northeast only. It was not possible for them to come in contact with the Sanskrit language. You just note this point. This is the most important point of the development of Assamese language. Sanskrit language developed from the synthesis of Aryan language with those of Aztec and Dravidian language. The Tibeto-Burmese group who adopted this Assamese language, they are confined to this northeast only and they have not come in contact with the Sanskrit language, and that is why the Assamese language is different from the Indo-Aryan language of central India, though Assamese language also originated from the Sanskrit language. I hope you understand how the present-day Assamese language was evolved. Thank you.